Welcome to the Huddle Within podcast, where we go beyond the surface to uncover the real impact of sports on our lives, whether it's lessons of resilience, the passion that fuels us, or the stories that connect us all. This is where the game gets personal. I am Daniel, a regular sports fan just like you, and together we'll explore what sports truly means beyond the surface. So step right into the huddle and let's get into it. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Huddle Within podcast. I thank you very much for tuning in today, and for those that have watched all the episodes as well, thank you for tuning in once again. If it is your first time, we do episodes every single Wednesday, so be sure to check these out. We go through a range of different sporting topics, unraveling, as a better word to probably say, the deeper meaning of sports in our lives and how it impacts that, etc., etc. And as you can tell for the title of this episode, we have Australian or Sydney Morning Herald journalist Vince Rugari, who covers football as a whole in this country. Started with Gold Coast United before they became extinct, and most recently working for the Sydney Morning Herald, as mentioned, and most notably famous for his excellent novel, Angeball. I encourage everyone to check that out. It's an extremely detailed book covering the journey and life of Ange Postecoglou. And for those that resonate with deeper meanings and want to know the process, the grind, and the hard work that goes into, I guess, coaching and that lifestyle, the book certainly covers all those aspects as well. So really excited for you guys to listen to this and hope you truly enjoy it. Vince was such a down-to-earth bloke, pretty chill, and I kind of enjoyed interviewing him as well. The first time I've sort of interviewed a journalist of that high regard. So you could probably tell I was a little bit nervous in there, but then again, sort of kind of comforted myself into that as well. But before we get into all that, we have to address the most recent news in the NBA, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the NBA championship. Congratulations to them. They did it in 7 games. It took an inspiring Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 25-point, 12-assist game, I'm pretty sure, from what my head can remember. A solid 20-point Jalen Williams performance as well. And also a extremely solid defensive performance from Chet Holmgren as well, who turned up big in this game as well. And full credits to them. They were the best team in the NBA the whole season. Having a 68-12 season is no steep feat as well. 2 wins off 70. The most consistent across the whole season. The MVP as well. Few defensive player of the year players too in that squad. This team is going to be good for a very, 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 very long time. And commiserations to the Indiana Pacers and the whole storyline, despite obviously OKC winning this in 7, is the horrific injury that Tyrese Halliburton copped in the first 7 minutes of the game. And for me personally, it was extremely emotional to see. And I have to be honest, because when he sort of went down and there was a zoom in on what he said, basically saying that he did it. He had the realization that he did tear his Achilles, was extremely emotional, especially given the fact that he decided to sacrifice his body for the team and also knew the risks that were going to come into playing on a calf strain. But no one expects and no one wants an Achilles tear to occur. Now we've had 3 Achilles tears this season, which I think the NBA needs to do something about the amount of games being played throughout the whole season, because in no world should there be 3 Achilles tears in one season for 3 star players, yet alone another 2 in Indiana as well. I can't forget to mention James Wiseman and I think it's Jarris Walker as well, or Isaiah Jackson, one of the 2 that have tore their Achilles too. So I don't wish an Achilles tear on anyone, yet alone that to happen in a must-win Game 7 where it's win or go home, essentially win or lose an NBA championship. And it's going to be really hard for the Pacers to really go to the NBA Finals again without their star player. So this is such a big blow to the Pacers organization as well, who have been the surprise of the whole playoffs. A true underdog story that they couldn't cap off a finals, but all the most overrated player jokes from Tyrese Halliburton that people have made are extremely thrown out the window now. The respect that Tyrese Halliburton has got, especially going out there, despite the risks of tearing his Achilles, is something that was truly inspiring as well. And you got to give credit to that. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of competitive spirit to go out there and try to compete, and he did that. And he was looking good too. People don't really talk about this much in the media, but he was 3 for 3 on threes as well. He was looking hot. And I genuinely think that if he was out there, the Pacers would have had a real fighting chance to win. Now, I'm not going to say that they would have won it because we're obviously never going to know, and we can't disrespect OKC Thunder being the best team all season. But I'm 100% certain that the Indiana Pacers would have gave OKC a competitive run, and it would have been the playoff game for the ages. And it still was, but overall, I guess it ended up being a blowout because there wasn't really much the Pacers could give towards the end. They were really relying on Benedict Mathurin and TJ McConnell, who just gave their all in that series, especially Mathurin. He didn't stop to the end. TJ McConnell hit 10 straight buckets. Aaron Naismith and Andrew Nembhard were very pesty on defense. Pascal Siakam was consistent as always, and Miles Turner was protecting the rim. They could do all they could in that instance. The only thing that I would criticize is the amount of minutes that Nembhard and Siakam were on the bench. But I can also understand that you're trying to roll with the punches with TJ McConnell and Benedict Mathurin getting constant points as well. So just a big blow for the Pacers. But as for OKC, they're looking to be a stronghold in the Western Conference for an extremely long time. So it's going to be hard to really beat this team, and it's easy to say that they'll go back to back, but knowing the NBA, it's really hard to go back to back. But what I can say is, with all the unfortunate injuries in the Eastern Conference, the Eastern Conference is as wide open as ever. With teams like Cavs now, they have a fighting chance after getting eliminated in the second round to the Pacers. They have a big chance to push. You've got Orlando that have made the recent Bain acquisition, and you've also got New York that have a chance to run it back too, and a young Detroit team that is getting Ivy back. The East might not be as strong as the West, but it can be very competitive, and anyone can get out of that East, which is extremely exciting. Unfortunately, the Wizards won't be near that, and it seems like an open window at the moment. But there's something that we can look forward to, and that is the NBA draft. So you obviously know that I pretty much we got selected sixth pick in this draft, despite having the equal or the second worst odds or regular season record, and also equal first odds in getting the number one pick. So a big drop there, but with all the recent news that's occurring, and those that are into basically NBA will know this, but for those that are not, the draft is essentially picking up the youngest player from university or from college. And the first pick is obviously going to get the best young player that will have a chance to be a superstar in the future. And one of those players, Ace Bailey, who's coming out of Rutgers, playing with Dylan Harper. Those two were literally the only two good players from that team. Is declining workouts from Philadelphia, and that seems like something to be alarmed for Wizards fans, because it seems as though Ace Bailey really wants a starting role with significant minutes, and we're one team that can offer him that. I still think realistically he might go 1 or 2 picks before us, whether it's Charlotte or whether it's Utah. But if we do end up being in his range, don't be surprised, Wizards fans, that Ace Bailey will become a Wizard. But looking at the board at the moment for when we're ranged, the person that I'm liking at the moment is Jeremiah Fears. Now, there's concerns that his jump shot isn't polished and that he's undersized for a guard, but I really like his craftiness, and I think if he can polish up his shooting, limit the turnovers, he can be a very good piece for us moving forward in this Wizards rebuild. But lots of players to look out for too. You've got Derek Queen as well, that is around 14, 15. The Wizards could probably sneak up to get him at 18 if he gets passed up. But this draft class is going to be very special. There is a lot of potential superstars here. You've got VK Edgecombe, you've got Con Knipple, you've got Dylan Harper, you've got Cooper Flagg, who pretty much are going to cover the top four. And then you've got a plethora of guards such as Trey Johnson, as mentioned, Ace Bailey, who's sort of a combo guard, and then also Jeremiah Fears. So for me, I think we're in that Jeremiah Fears, Trey Johnson and Ace Bailey zone. if we do end up getting those guys, and if Vijay slips to any of those positions, it'd be great to hit on him as well. But the Wizards really need to hit on this draft and not hit on someone that's going to be complementary like Concanipple, who would be a decent fit for another team, but someone who's going to be the star for this team. And Ace Bailey seems to fit that profile. We'll have to wait and see. The draft is going to be 2 days from when this podcast is released, and extremely excited for that. There might be a bit of a draft reaction, depending on what the Wizards will do, but I suspect that it will be one of those three players that will get drafted to the Washington Wizards. And as for other teams that are around that, just look out for the draft as well. It's going to be, I think, 10 a.m. on Friday for us, and then also Saturday too for the second round. But without further ado, that probably concludes the NBA talk. I will move over to the interview now. But thank you guys for listening in, and I really hope you enjoy the lovely interview that I have with Vince Rugari. It's a very good listen. Vince, would you like to introduce yourself to the people listening today?
Oh, yeah, maybe, I guess.
Why not?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm Vince. I'm a sports journo for the Sydney Morning Herald, and I do a couple of other little things on the side from time to time. But that's yeah. I'm not very good at that stuff, bro. That's me. Sounds of it.
Well, I can sort of give a bit of a limelight to the people listening as well. Vince Rugani, someone that has been part of the Stan Sports panel, has been doing journalism for a very, very long time. Started, I'm pretty sure, at Gold Coast Suns. If correct me if I'm wrong.
Gold Coast
And
United.
also
Although
Gold Coast
I did cover
Suns.
the Suns in their first season. That's when I was like studying at uni on the Gold Coast. I
Yeah,
remember.
I did sort of see that. But in terms of football itself, yeah, the Gold Coast United makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, started with them. And then most famously, the author of Angeball, which I've read and I'm a massive fan of. But yeah, correct me if I've missed anything else.
You probably have, but I can't think of anything either. My
Yeah,
memory isn't the best for that sort of stuff, but it's just interesting. I suppose I have been doing journalism for a long time now, but it doesn't feel like it. I really only started in like 2012, and yeah, that's like 14 years ago. That's crazy though. That's crazy.
yeah,
That's 14 years. Anyway,
yeah. It is a pretty long time. Yeah, I'd say time flies when you're having fun, and I guess probably doing it, you've had so much enjoyment that you probably haven't even noticed the time. So yeah,
totally. I mean, that's
yeah,
why like I sort of did it or went into it in the first place. Is you want that feeling of like you never actually work. Like if you enjoy what you do and everything that comes with it, then there's not too many times where it feels like I'm forcing myself to do something that I don't really want to do, which is a pretty good situation to be in. And
yeah,
if
totally.
everyone should sort of, I know it's not easy, but like aim for that in their sort of careers, because then when you have to put in extra or go overtime and all that, it comes sort of naturally and easily. It's not like you're not forcing yourself. And good things come that way, I find.
Totally, totally. Well, just getting on that, I guess, how did you realize that this would be that type of career for you?
Through other people telling me, basically, because I didn't think I wanted to do this, or like I remember, um, I started studying a journalism degree, journalism and sports management at uni. But I did one semester of the journalism degree and the intro subject, which was called writing for news media, which is basically where I had to go around like campus and like ask people stuff and like find stories and I was 17. I was real young at uni, and I was nervous. Moved into state. I guess I wasn't like fully confident. I just didn't love it, and I never really liked the idea of being like a journo who, you grow up and you watch the news and you see, athletes and coaches talking in situations where they clearly don't want to, like TV journos holding the mic up under someone's nose, being like, "Well, what do you got to say about that?" Like, I just never found that particularly appealing. So I changed my degree to communication from journalism, and I majored in journalism and PR because I had the idea that I wanted to more work on the club side of things. And I did, and I went into that, and I was doing an internship through my uni studies with Gold Coast United, funnily enough. Um, And a mate of mine who had a part-time job working for a website called Sportal, which is no longer around, covering sport in southeast Queensland, was leaving, and I was just in a press box one day with him and my mentor at Gold Coast United. He was like, I think from memory, I think he was moving to London, and so he was trying to figure out like who can we get to fill in this job of doing the match reports and all that, and not just football but all other sports in the area. And he was like, "Well, you should do it," and I was like, "Nah." Like I'm not keen. And then the dude who was overseeing my internship was basically like, "Nah, you'd be stupid to not like to turn that down because like your instincts, you have journalism instincts." I don't really know what that means, but like that forced me down the path. And then once I started doing it, I was just like, I couldn't really imagine doing anything else. But it was basically totally accidental to the point where I physically removed myself from the path that I ended up being on anyway by changing my degree because I didn't like it so much. And now in the end, like I'll just, I think is what happens with time and experience in anything. I'll talk to whoever and not have to worry about it. But back then, when you're trying to decide what you want to do with your life, the idea of just talking to people who you didn't know and trying to find a story was just like so frightening in a way or whatever. It just wasn't comfortable. But you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and then eventually you get comfortable at them. So that's the short version.
Yeah, you're sounding like how I am right now, to be honest, talking to you at this point, if I'm honest. But it's a great intake and intel. And yeah, I guess as you get the experience and you kind of go through that, you start building that kind of rapport and that comfortableness through that. Do you remember your first ever like match report that you did or journalism story when you did start and they put you into that kind of deep end?
I don't know what the first one was, but I remember. Yeah, it's hard to say what the first one was, but I do remember like turning up at my first Gold Coast Titans game, like an NRL game, and like I'd never have really been into rugby league because I like grew up in Adelaide. And it's just not my game. I just remember like turning up and just not. I wasn't heaps prepared. I sort of tried my best, but there's only so much you can sort of prepare yourself when you're covering an NRL game for the first time. And I was just looking around like there's all these like experienced dudes in the box, and just like I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on in NRL, which like I didn't fully know at that time. And I was just like, whoa, this is like not, yeah, again, out of the comfort zone type areas. So as far as my first story goes, it was, I don't know, it was probably some midweek press conference at some freaking one of the teams around there. I can't remember, but everything was new to me back then.
Yeah, totally, totally. And were you always a massive fan of football prior in Adelaide?
Yeah. It sort of wasn't my first sport until we qualified for the 2006 World Cup, and that sort of changed everything for me. But like, I grew up going to, mostly Port Adelaide games in the AFL, and then a few Adelaide City games with my dad and uncles in the old NSL, and then a little bit in the A League, but not much. But then, like, I got independently more into football. I was 15 when we qualified for, like, in that game against Uruguay. I was 15, and I don't know how to describe it. As a WOG, just football was just always there. My family was never a big football family, but football was just always there somehow. And just over time, I gravitated more to football just because, well, it's just the best. It's such a great way to see the world as well through football, understand more about the world and shit. So, yeah, I've always been into it, but I'd say growing up, I call it the Holy Trinity. The three sports I care about more than any others: football, AFL, and cricket. I would say growing up, football was number three of those three, and then over time has become like a clear number one.
Yeah, totally. Would completely make sense. I think we're all grown up to loving AFL and cricket. I'm sort of the same. Grown up with those sports. Started with AFL. You can see the Collingwood frame at the back of me. Massive Collingwood fan growing up, and then
That's a real shame,
transitioning. Bro. Sorry.
That's a real shame, Collingwood.
Yeah. Well, we're pretty much similar in that aspects. But yeah, we're doing well this year. To be fair.
Yeah, it
Hopefully,
sucks. I
17th.
can't cop it. Like, you guys have had your
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, maybe one day for you guys, but I think when I don't know, Ken Hingley's looking to leave this season, so maybe a new
Yeah,
coach, new system.
it might have been our day sooner if he'd left a couple of years ago, but that's a different story.
Yeah, for sure. We could cover that a whole nother time. But yeah, so getting into football and then actually just learning about how it impacts the world and kind of when I saw AFL growing up, I just saw it as an Australian thing. And then when I realized that there were sports that actually were from all around the world, it connected me to the world as well. And then that's when I sort of understood kind of my geography, my history, and everything. And it just kind of propelled into new heights as well, along with playing too. But as I've grown older, I've started to just love, I guess, all sports and the fandom and history. But I find that football, out of all of them, really covers the whole world and gives you that kind of that insight as well. I wanted to get straight into the book, Angeball. So I had a read, and the one thing that I just took out from that book was just the level of detail that was put into every single chapter, covering all bases. Like I never knew that Ange Postecoglou actually coached Western Suburbs, which is like 10 minutes up the road for me. Before this book, so things like that. I don't want to obviously spoil too much because I'm encouraging people to get on this book. But talk to me through how kind of this whole process went on. Obviously, starting the book, being able to just get all this information, and even writing. Like I hear it takes a lot of time, so I couldn't imagine, especially with the level of detail that's been on each chapter and each source. Just yeah,
Yeah,
take me through that whole process.
it's a long process. But it's funny, the Western Suburbs thing, like I didn't even know, I knew he'd been there, but I didn't know much about it. There's not that much information about it.
Mhm,
Like, you can go on Wikipedia and it's there, but I don't know if it's still the case now, but in the past, I know if you clicked on the Western Suburbs team there on his profile, it actually went to the team in Sydney called Western
mhm,
Suburbs, which played in the NSL. So like the actual club itself doesn't have a page. There's just no information about it. So that part of it was like really interesting because I just knew nothing. Um, but as far as the book goes, so talking about my time with Sportone in Queensland, that was when I first sort of crossed paths with Ange when it was at Brisbane Roar.
mhm,
So that was like really some of my first exposure to covering football was covering his teams, which were just amazing. And then so obviously over a period of time like decade plus, I've covered his teams. I've covered the Socceroos when he was in charge, and always kept an eye on him when he left to go overseas and all that. So built up a relationship there. And then when he was confirmed as Spurs manager, um, the next morning in Australia. So I remember I was a busy morning because I was writing stories about the stuff that had happened overnight, like Pep Guardiola saying, you know, he's an amazing coach, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone's still getting their heads around it all. There was a publisher, the publisher of the book, called Hachette, had a meeting in our offices in the Sydney Morning Herald, which was like they're trying to introduce themselves and their company and their processes to the newsroom to basically say to people, like, if you're a journalist and you're interested in writing a book, we are potentially interested in talking to you. Here's what we do. Here's how it works. Blah, blah, blah. I can't give you any more detail about that meeting because I wasn't there. I was too
mhm,
busy writing the Ange stuff. And I completely, like, it slipped my mind that, like, oh, shit, I really wanted to go to that meeting because I have always had the idea of, like, writing a book and just like, oh, well, I missed it. Anyway, I found the guy in our office kitchen afterwards, just talking with people. And I said to him, like, "How you going? I'm Vince Rugari. Like, I missed the meeting because I was writing about this Ange Postecoglou guy. Do you have like a PowerPoint presentation or something that you can send me so I can just catch up on what I missed?" And he's like, "Oh, well, Ange, that's interesting. Like, isn't that massive? And we're thinking about writing potentially getting a book done on him. We're looking for a writer." And I said, "Well, mate, like, I've been covering him for blah blah blah." We exchanged contact details. Then I basically had to switch straight away onto covering the Women's World Cup, which was about to start.
mhm,
But before the Women's World Cup started, they came back to me and said, like, "Yeah, look, we'd love to make you an offer to write a book about Ange Postecoglou." And I'm like, "Holy shit, okay."
wow.
Sussed it out, all checked out, went for it. Still then had to cover the Women's World Cup. And then basically the day after it finished, which was August 21, 2023, I had most of the remainder of the year off. I took annual leave through work, and basically just started from there. Just research, ideas, ringing people, like combing through digital newspaper archives and like old stories to like get my head into, what was the being talked about in say 2010 when he went to Brisbane
Hmm.
Roar. What was the situation of the game of Brisbane, etc. Um, all that sort of stuff. Like watch some old games, some old interviews, transcribed a lot of podcasts that I know Ange had been on before, and sort of um, put Ange's story sort of breaks itself up in terms of obvious chapters and eras, like at each team. So I'm trying to like divide all this material that I gather into like, oh, that'll go good there, that'll go good in the
Hmm.
Brisbane chapter, etc. So it's just a lot of that. A trip to London as well to watch a couple of games and to interview Ange, who I spoke to once for the book. And man, it was like 4 and a bit months of like sitting here, right here on this chair in this room at this desk, from morning until my wife would get home from work, which would be somewhere between 4 and 6 o'clock. Just writing, man, and just getting lost in the story. And it's like it's a bit similar to what we was saying before. Like it was hard work, and it was
Hmm.
relentless everyday stuff, including through Christmas and all that. But also like it's pretty easy to drill into something that you're really passionate and interested about. So it never felt like a chore. It was just an amazing big story, chopped up into like 17 or 18 little mini stories, which form the book, and just trying to get as much insight into it as possible. And I learned a lot myself throughout it all, but I also had memories and recollections to draw upon, and my own experience in journalism when he was with the Socceroos or whatever. And yeah, I was lucky enough that I've over my time built up a lot of contacts with people who've known Ange too. So just the first few weeks or the first month or so, I pretty much spent it on the phone, or sitting with people over a coffee, just interviewing them. And then it was about like splitting all that up and just starting to write. And then yeah, it was pretty daunting in terms of like I think they asked for like 70 to 80,000 words, and I'm pretty sure I submitted somewhere between 110 and 120. So they got more than they asked for, but I just figured like, hey, if you want the book that I think it should be like the way it should be, then just let me let me do it. So
Yeah, totally.
they just sort of had to cop that. I think they were happy with the end result, but man, hard work, but very very rewarding.
Yeah, so much detail in that book. Seriously, like the stuff that I've read and like the intricacies of Ange and the people that he was associated with, the connections that he had through football and people that he brought over to different clubs, people's impact that he gave on people, it is truly inspiring. And it's so good that it's actually been put on a cover because from what I gathered in that book, without anyone reading it, it did seem as though he was extremely misunderstood from media in Australia, and that sort of did kind of question his relationship with Australian football here, much needing him to go out, in my personal opinion. But it's just crazy how you were able to kind of tie that all together as well.
Yeah,
What I guess for you was the most surprising thing when writing the book, besides what we mentioned about, I think, Western suburbs?
it's a good question. There weren't heaps of surprises just because I've lived a lot of the journey, in real time. Like from Brisbane onwards, I don't, I remember everything because I experienced it. And like, I remember what people said and when around that time. I guess what was interesting in terms of discovering new sort of facts and detail was just more stuff around his time at South Melbourne, just because, when he left South Melbourne, I was 10 years old. And, my knowledge of the NSL didn't go further than turning up a high marsh on 2 or 3 times a season with my uncle, and not really knowing who the opposition team was or what was going on really. So it was interesting to just learn that he's pretty much been this way since day one, including back
Yeah, it
then.
hasn't
Like
changed.
even at South Melbourne, everyone back there, you'd think there was a period where he tried this and this didn't work, so he went this way and that worked, or like um, over time maybe he like learned his voice or like found a way to address the team through trial and error, etc. But nah, it was pretty much like early doors, this dude was almost fully formed as a person, as a manager, and it was just knocking over challenges thereafter, which was pretty incredible. I don't know how much that was a surprise. Like I guess I kind of knew it, but I just like the extent to which people would talk about that. And probably just how dominant South Melbourne were during that time period as well. Because, like, again, I don't remember watching these games, and until having to do this book, I had like a cursory knowledge of their seasons and how they went. But yeah, fair to say they were unbelievable, and he was the reason. And yeah, he's been that way ever since.
Yeah, totally. It's crazy how I think with his whole career trajectory from having NSL club managed to all the way up to the Premier League, the story has been the same as you mentioned every single time. The way he wants to play football, the way he deals with the media, the way he deals with his players, it's super consistent across the whole board. Obviously, your book was finished before all the stuff that's happened now, and I'd love
Yeah,
to talk about all these. And not to criticize Ange or anything, but I think the only one time he ran away from his football was to bring Tottenham home a trophy. So I go for Man United, and I sat there being upset, but understanding that our team is no good, and probably something we probably needed to really get us like a wake up call, hopefully next season, but we don't know. But Ange to win a trophy for Tottenham, who have been starved of that for 17 years, and then more than that with a major trophy. To go against his play, I found quite fascinating, but I think it was a whole different situation there, given that Tottenham's been starved. So talk to me about that, and knowing that how Ange is, how do you think his mindset would have been if you haven't spoke to him before that game, and kind of his outlook in this?
yeah. Look, I haven't spoken to him, and I don't know, and I've sort of been asked about this a couple of times, and like I do want to hear more from him um, to explain the decisions that he made through this second season, because I don't know if I fully understand it from his perspective. And funnily enough, by the end of this week, I've got to write like a new foreword, like basically 1,500 words that will be inserted at the start of the book in future editions in the UK. So I'm sort of thinking about this stuff at the moment. But I think my best guess is that it was partly due to like circumstances in terms of personnel injuries, and not only missing players, but you know players like Romero and Van der Ven who came back over the second half of that season. I'm not sure they were ever 100% fit, and so it was having to figure out a way of keeping them as fit as you possibly could for the most important games with a style that wouldn't compromise that. But I think also the big one was the league season went to poo, um, and I think over his 2 years, Ange slowly came to the realization. Like he started there being like, everyone just wants a trophy, but like we need to. That's not the thing to be aiming for. The thing to aim for is consistent success, and we're trying to build that. Blah blah blah. And I think Tottenham is such a peculiar club culturally and so strange that over time, I think he realized that like hey, we actually might just need a trophy, just if for no other reason than to just like get this monkey off the back, this psychological baggage, this term Spursy. Maybe we actually do just need to win something, and that way there, once we've done that, the cloud will lift, and after that point, we'll actually have the psychological space or the ability to build the thing that he was actually wanting to build. But yeah, it was really striking in terms of the way that they did it because, I've never seen Ange teams go long from goal kicks like Tottenham did in the Europa League. That the style was really different, and I want to hear him sort of justify or explain how he justifies the change up in style because there's so many times in the past, as the book details, where people have just said, be more pragmatic everywhere in his career, and he's never done it. Um, and usually it works when he doesn't do it. This time he did it and it worked. I don't know. I guess I'm still digesting it myself at the moment, but it'll be interesting to hear what the big fella has to say.
Yeah, for sure. I'm keen to get his outlook on it as well. But I think it was obviously the right decision in the end of the day, getting that last trophy. And I feel like the stage is probably the biggest stage he's ever coached on, Europa League final and stuff. And I think when you look at Tottenham, and I know you support them as well. I read in the book.
Yeah,
Confirm me.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was a United fan too, actually growing up. But like I watched. There was a. It happened when I was at uni. Actually, there was a bit of a period where I just sort of like dropped all my European allegiances because I realized that like they don't actually matter to me that much. Like well, this is for me anyway. Like grew up supporting Juve and Man United. I just chose them. So I don't really have any connections to them, and I'd be happy when they won, but I wouldn't be like distraught when they'd lose. Not like many people do with their teams. Like and I always sort of equated it as like watching a movie or a TV show in terms of being entertained that way. Whereas over time I realised, and particularly as my sort of career in Australian football, expanded. Fundamentally I don't care about what happens overseas. All I care about is what happens with our teams and our people.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I own some United jerseys, but I don't really I don't feel anything towards them. And then not only did Ange go to Tottenham, and that got me emotionally invested, but my wife and her in-law, her family and my in-laws are all actually Tottenham from way back. And sort of as I explained on another podcast recently, like it feels like for me there needs to be an Aussie involved somewhere for there to be the conditions in which a spark can start up that will catch on to me emotionally and actually like giving a shit about a team. And possibly too early to say after he got chopped, but I think I will be Tottenham from now on because of that experience. But yeah, just funny that you're a United fan because me too in a past life.
Yeah, struggling United fan to be honest. But when you so I went before like you're mentioning that when I was talking about obviously Ange winning that trophy, it was crazy to me, and obviously our biases come through being Aussie football fans, but the fact that they still binned off Ange despite his philosophy and his way of playing football is to grow and evolve the club. And I think from winning that trophy, that would have been the perfect next season for him to do that. And just wanted to get your thoughts on yeah the whole process of that. I kind of sort of understand in a sense that United sacked Ten Hag, or didn't sack Ten Hag, decided to stay with him after winning a trophy. But I feel like the way we know Ange and understanding how his philosophy is two completely different things, especially considering a club like Tottenham as well. So yeah, give me your thoughts on the eventual sacking. I know it got a lot of criticism, rightly so, across the whole world, which was good to see because we all obviously saw everyone saw we were seeing. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a dumb decision that they will regret. Um, it would have been really interesting to see, talking about the getting the monkey off the back, what they'd been able to do in a third season. We'll never know, but just like it's probably a good thing for Ange in the long run because you look at the reasons that the Tottenham board gave for sacking him, and it's like we want to compete on multiple fronts, and we think a change of approach is needed. I think that's a direct quote from the statement. And it's like, yeah, a direct approach, a change of approach is needed from the board, from you guys, not from the coach, because to compete in multiple competitions, they need a much deeper squad than what
For
they
sure.
had this season. And the thinness of that squad, combined with the injuries they suffered, led Ange to the decision halfway through to say the priority is now Europa, not Premier League, which led to more losses than they otherwise would have had in the Premier League, which led to their league position in the end. And it's just like I just think asking any manager to compete on multiple fronts um, with a squad like that, or that size squad, or that kind of squad, especially after the transfer window they had before this past season, where they went young, um, it's not going to happen basically. And so what the club is looking for is a coach who will, get them to finish somewhere between fourth and seventh, and probably not win any cups because to win those cups, you need you either need to spend more on players to make your squad bigger and stronger to compete in multiple competitions, or you need to sacrifice something. And it sounds like they don't want to sacrifice the league, even though one of Tottenham's most famous, people once said the game is about glory. Ange brought them glory. They decided, nah, not for us. So I thought it was really harsh. I could understand it, but I thought it was harsh. Um, I thought the right thing to do would be give him another season, not only because he's earned it, but because um, I'm just so curious to know what would have happened there with that playing group who were fully behind him, trophy in the bag, couple more changes to the squad. What could happen? Because people forget how good they looked at times this past season. When they were good in the first half of the season, they were very, very good. So I think the narrative takes over and people talk down, um, what he was building there. Of course, it got clouded by 22 losses. So yeah, that's why I say you understand it, but you got to scratch the surface and look a little bit deeper. That's why I sort of disagree. But I await any news at any point on what the big fella does next, because I'll certainly be following along.
For sure. Yeah, well, hopefully he gets a good gig as well, and whoever gets him will be lucky to have him. I'm certain of that. But yeah, again, I just mentioned like before, it's just you got to sacrifice something to get to where you want to be as well. And the fact that like any Tottenham fan you ask, whether they'd prefer to finish top four without a trophy or even top five, top six without a trophy, would also prefer to finish 16th or 17th, wherever they did finish, and win any trophy. But the fact that they won a Europa League trophy, which got them into Champions League anyway, they are essentially going to be able to be in a position where they can compete in all competitions, whether the board backs them or not. Ange Postecoglou was in a situation where he was going to be able to compete for Champions League, all the domestic cups, and the season. So yeah, it just kind of shocked me. And even with the acquisition of Thomas Frank, I know he's a good manager. I know he's done a lot of things for Brentford, but can we really sit there and say that he's miles clear of Ange Postecoglou in sense of what he's done? So it's
That's
just
why
like a
I
question mark.
reckon it's any decision was a risk, but I think they've ended up actually taking a bigger risk in changing the coach than just sticking with Ange for one more season. But all the best to him.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, like I like Thomas Frank, so I'm not too bummed and don't want him to not
Me too.
succeed. But
And I've
yeah,
been careful to try and I've got nothing to get. I hope he works out. He seems like a good dude. So I don't want to crap on him. I disagree with the board's decision. But after that, who do you bring in? Probably a guy like him. So I try to be careful not to wish him ill, because he's just the poor guy they brought in. He's not. He didn't fire Ange.
that's true. Totally true. And I wanted to get into this, and I know you mentioned it before, and it's something that I kind of want to talk about unfiltered and raw, because if I'm honest, I don't have solutions or things or ways to feel how Australian football can improve here. I know Ange has paved the way for a lot of Australian coaches that are up and coming, but for your kind of knowledge, and I just want to go through a whole discussion on this. I didn't really have questions on it. I feel like we can just bounce through these ideas. Like, what is the issue with Australian football, and how can we get better? Like, I know it's such an easy, vague question, but I just want to pick your brain in that, since you've covered so much in this sport. Obviously, there's so many like competing sports where we're at the moment, but I feel like for someone that loves all sports, we can just appreciate. Why can't we just appreciate them all? Why can't we just give everyone a fair game or a fair light? It's just, yeah. I got a lot of questions on it, so
Yeah.
just fire away.
Oh, look, where do you start, man? I literally
I'd
don't
say
know where to start.
coaches. This would be the
Well, look,
first one. Like, how can we support them? Like, I'm an upcoming coach. I like to know what I could do personally to these kids. Like, I coach at Victories Pre-Academy. So we got kids that are 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 that are going through our system. How can, I guess, football support coaches like myself to develop these kids and just in general?
look, I don't know. In fact,
Yeah.
you'd be in a better position to answer that question, because I'm not
Yeah.
a coach. I'm not
Yeah.
at the
For sure.
coalface. But I just on coaches, I would say we've never had better coaches throughout the game in our history. I would say,
Yeah.
because look at the amount of them who are working overseas and doing things, not just Ange, but Kevin Muscat and others who are doing things that we thought were not possible a short time ago. And then coaches in Australia, I just I think we're doing okay in that department. We could probably do better. Like I don't agree with the size of the cost for the coaching badges and all that you have to go through. But I know there's reasons why it's so high, and I don't have the answers as to how to make it cheaper so that we can have more coaches going through them. But I would say coaches seem to be one of the areas where we're strongest.
Yeah. And then I guess youth development's been pretty strong as well. I know there's heaps more like budget and money coming into like pre-academies and whatnot. So to me, there is like a future for getting these talents, but how do we take them to kind of the next level is what I'm always wondered. Is it a place where we just get our best players and just send them off overseas, our best coaches, send them off overseas? Is there a way we can sort of keep people internally?
Not really. I mean,
Yeah.
because that's what most countries do, to be honest. It's only a select handful in Europe where they become the destination leagues. And even within them, there's only one destination league, really, and that's the Premier League. I think fundamentally, I always think about like what's the number one thing that we should be working towards as a game in Australia. For me, it's I want to see Australia win the World Cup before I die. As impossible as that sounds. So how do we get to that position where we need to make sure that the Socceroos are as strong as possible? How do we do that? Well, it's probably just about producing the best players we can. And how do we do that? Find them early in Australia, expose them early in Australia, and then get them to environments where they can level up. And the more that you have, the more players that we have um, playing at all levels across Europe means the deeper the pool of players that the coach will be able to select from. And then I just think it's a numbers game, right? Like the more that get over there, let's say I'm just picking these numbers out of my ass here, but let's say, historically over the past 10 years, we've had at any one time 100 players overseas, you know, and say that 10% of them are any good in terms of like top level players. So you got 10 out of 100. Let's say 5 years down the line, we have 500 players. And even if it's still 10% that's any good, we're talking a group of 50 players, not 10. And so from that standpoint, I just think whoever's the national coach of Australia at that time, the team can sort of be only as good as the players they can pick from. And if they've got a deeper pool of players who are playing at higher levels, then it stands to reason that the Socceroos will get better. And then hopefully one day we'll achieve that ridiculous dream of winning a World Cup. But it's all little building blocks along the way. I think sometimes when you look at situations and Australian football is a good one, it's so big, it's so complicated. It's like it can seem like overwhelming or like daunting or like wow, like how do we untie this? But sometimes you just got to look at it bit by bit, and when you do that, it's sort of the path becomes clear and easy. Like apply this to any element of the game, really. But I don't think there's any silver bullet or magic formula that we're missing that we suddenly introduce it and everything starts clicking. I think it's just pretty much like anything in life is try and figure out what the best thing is and try and do that as best as you can within your capabilities and just keep going. It's consistency, it's building, it's culture, all things that you can't flick your fingers and they happen. It's like what we were talking about before about getting into journalism and it's about reps. It's about reps and getting more of them as a game, as players, as clubs, etc. Yeah, we often look for the magic solution in Australian football. We think, is there something we can just copy from like the French or like whoever the big country is in football at the moment? What are they doing that we're not? And the answer is nothing really. Like by this stage in 2025 in Australia, any worthy football idea, we've been exposed to it by now. It's about how do you execute in your country with the setup that you have. Yeah, that feels like a rambling answer, but hopefully it made sense.
No, it's a great insight and great input, and it totally makes sense because I always sit there and think like, is there something that we're not doing right? Is there anything that can like, as you said, the magic formula? But it's so true. It's like I feel like we are when you answer that, we are doing as much as we can. When I look into like my mind and think about coaching and think
It
about
doesn't mean we can't do
development and
better in
media's
some
grown.
ways. We definitely can.
Yeah,
There's always ways we can improve, but just like sometimes people look at it and it's like, oh, it's all wrong, or no,
yeah,
you're missing this one thing, and I just don't think it's that simple. Like I actually think that there's not really simple for anything that's good. There's not really a simple, easy answer. There's a hard answer, and the answer is invariably like keep going or like, or there's probably, structural things that challenge the ability to do it in a bigger way or whatever. But the answer to that is not give up or do something completely different. It's keep going and hope that over time you can shift those things. Yeah.
Do you think fans are too negative as well? Like we don't get too much of an attendance for like other sports or local sports in A League and stuff. And then when the Socceroos are on, people already have this kind of negative connotation. Do you think that impacts anything whatsoever?
Look, we probably are a little bit too negative, but I don't know how much it actually matters. It probably just makes people just like maybe 10% more depressed than they have to be um, in following the game. But fans are fans everywhere, all over the world. Like I'm pretty sure the way we react to things is not that different to how they react to things overseas, or funnily enough, in Australia in other codes. Like we'll probably give ourselves a hard time over certain things within the game in terms of domestic support, not just A League but below that as well. But like, uh, another way you can look at it is when these people just want us to be better as well. Um, so look, you can't get yourself bogged down in it too much, because the average Australian football fan definitely misses sometimes the forest for the trees. But I don't think it makes a massive difference either way.
For sure. For sure. I think I will say this, despite all the negativity, every World Cup that we do go into, it feels like we do have the Australian spirit in every single game and we always compete. So I don't see why we can't get to that next level potentially. For me, I'm thinking a bit more smaller than a World Cup. I'm thinking like, let's get to a quarter final for once. Let's just break that kind of curse in getting the round of 16. But we have a big chance to do it next year. We've qualified. So how are you feeling going into next year's World Cup? Obviously, Tony Popovich is a bit of a different coach to obviously what Ange is, but definitely a results-driven identity as well, trying to get the results and trying to get victories. So take me through, I guess, the whole World Cup kind of qualification. We started really bad, but we ended up beating Japan for the first time in like 15 years, I'm pretty sure, and then winning at home as well in the last minute for Zizbage. So there's some positives to take out of that as well.
Yeah, look, we started qualification terribly under Arnie for those first two games of this phase, but then Popper comes in, and like I thought the Socceroos were very stale under Arnie. And Popper came in midway through qualification with not a lot of wiggle room in terms of results. So I'm sort of reserving judgment on the way they play, because I think it's very difficult to introduce a whole massive new style of things in the middle of qualification. So the good thing is he's got 12 months now to sort of improve the way we play, particularly with the ball between now and the World Cup, and I think he will. I like Popper a lot. I think you know, it's clear everything he does at a very high level, very intense, very focused. And the boys have responded really well. Like he actually couldn't ask for better results since he came into the job. Undefeated, beat Japan and Saudi Arabia in the same window. If you offered that when he took over, you'd take that 100% of the time. So the interesting thing will be, okay, now that he's laid a good platform, particularly defensively, and um, he's certainly restored some pride into the jersey, and the intensity levels of the team have gone way up, which is great. Now it's about how can we evolve that in this next 12 months, all these friendly games that we'll have. How does he integrate some of the new young generation of players, particularly who play in the front half, like your Segachic's and Iran Kunda and all that sort of stuff? Because I think these guys as well will also help improve the way we attack as well. What does he do with the midfield? How do we find a midfield combination or balance that enables us to have more of the ball sometimes, or retain the ball more effectively? And how do we generate better chances? These are the things he needs to look at for the next 12 months. And the good thing is he's got 12 months to do it, which is exciting. So I'm pretty optimistic about the Socceroos under Popper. I think he's got them heading in a great direction at the moment. And yeah, it's an interesting one with the next World Cup, because I don't know with the expansion to 48 teams, I don't know if reaching what's a pass mark versus what we've done in the past. Like it's a bit hard to know, because there's going to be, of course, a round of 32 and then a round of 16. Um, so what will be satisfactory for us? Hard to say. The good thing, I think we can get if we win a lot of these friendlies in the next 12 months, we'll be in pot 2 for the draw, which means we've got a better chance of a better group, which means, God, look, I don't know what it means. We'll find out when the draw's done and all that. But it's a different World Cup, obviously, format, and so therefore, when you're looking at what are we after, hard to say.
Yeah,
Depends how things pan out.
it sort of really depends, as you said, on our kind of group. Like if we do end up getting, like Ange got stitched up with his group, I find that if he had a stronger group back in 2014, or a weaker group, sorry, would have been easier for him to get out the way he
Well,
was playing
when you
football
look
in
at
a
the
weaker group.
projected pots, we still could get stitched up even if we end up in pot 2. Because I'm pretty sure the last one I saw had like Greece and Italy in pot 4. So
Wow.
there's a possibility where you could have like a group of say Spain, Australia, Italy, and someone else from pot 3 who is very good. And it's like, well, you thought this 48 team World Cup was supposed to be easier, but apparently not.
Yeah, which pot are we like? So what we're aiming for 2. We're set on 2 at the moment.
At
Like,
the
how does it
moment,
work?
we're like the top of 3 and going into 2, depending on FIFA rankings. I think I don't know off the top of my head how it works. All I do know is when I'm back in the office next week, I'm probably going to plan a story, just sort of explaining it to be like,
That'll be good.
Give people an understanding of why these friendlies over the next year, the results actually do matter because they factor into the possibility of an easier path of the World Cup or not.
Yeah, I would never have known
Basically,
that.
the more games we win from here, the
Yeah.
more likely it is that we'll be in pot 2 versus pot 3 because we're just on the threshold at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, looking for a pot 2 aiming is the ideal, and obviously depending on Europe. Europe's obviously a tough confederation. Hopefully, not too many big teams in top 4, pot 4 as well. So we'll look up on that. And I think when you say that we have a year to go until the World Cup, we've got a lot of A-League young stars that are getting signed potentially by a lot of European teams as well. So hopefully those certain players that are going to get signed have good seasons as well and make a really big push for getting into the Socceroos. So I suppose for speaking of the World Cup, as we mentioned, do you plan to obviously cover the World Cup there? Is that one of your goals, or have you covered World Cups before from memory? Like been there actually?
Men's World Cup's only one, and that was Qatar. And it was a good experience, but it left me feeling like I haven't really covered a World Cup because it was so different to, you're expecting the party atmosphere in the streets and all that. And that wasn't there in Qatar. The benefit was, though, that everything was in driving distance, basically. So there were times when, like, you wake up one day and it's like, well, Socceroos aren't on today. What games can we go see? And all of the options are available. Man, I remember I went to England versus Iran in the group stage, and England were like smashing them, and it was a boring game. And I left at half time because I got a notification saying that Messi was doing a press conference in like the main media area of the tournament. And so I literally just legged it, got an Uber to the place, and just sat in on this Messi press conference. So you can't do that in a normal World Cup because you're all over the country. But I also want to experience a World Cup where you can like, do World Cup things in the streets, put it that way. Although this being America now, who knows where what might be possible and what might be off limits by the time the World Cup runs around with the orange man in charge. But I just want the I wish I've done more World Cups. I haven't, so I'm really looking forward to this one, and hopefully it's the experience that I'm sort of imagining in my head.
Yeah, well, 3 countries this year, 3 sort of
Yeah.
different countries as well,
I'd
which will
love to go
be
to
very
Mexico as well too.
yeah.
Mexico seems like a cool country, and even Canada as well. So like it's a good one. So I'm keen for that. I did the Women's World Cup here last year, but, and then I look ahead in 2027, the Women's World Cup is in Brazil, and I just think
Wow.
that would be an amazing experience. Having not covered 2014 in Brazil for the men, the ability to cover a World Cup in Brazil would be amazing. Bucket list shit. So
Yeah, 100%.
hopefully that happens too.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping for it too. I'm hoping to go as well. I definitely want to go to Mexico. I've been learning Spanish. I've been telling people on this pod
Nice.
that I've been learning Spanish, so just trying to utilize the language in another country, but in a World Cup setting would be unreal as well. And I've always wanted to experience just like the culture aspect of it. Like I love to obviously go into the stadium and watch a football match as well. But inherently just seeing kind of the atmosphere and all the different countries around the world congregate into like one country and one city is something that I just find extremely like fascinating and exciting, and just seeing everyone's fan perspectives, how happy they are and kind of how excited they are for games, and just how they connect with the world as well is something that
Totally.
I'm extremely excited about. And I think when people talk about Qatar, yes, maybe it wasn't like that party situation or whatnot, but I feel as though regardless of where you are situated in a World Cup, you're going to have people from around the world coming. And I feel like it's just one place where everyone just kind of like congregates together. So
Totally.
yeah, yeah,
Which is why I also think, and I think it will happen, but like we've got to have a World Cup here one day. Like it will be unbelievable. And I think the
to
world
come.
actually knows that. I was listening to the Football Ramble the other day, a podcast, and they were doing like a mailbag segment where it was like, where should the World Cup go next in future that it hasn't been before? And the obvious answer that everyone had was like, well, Australia. Like they do sport events as good as anyone. And you just know that we'd freaking smash it. Like and it's not even patriotism to say we would have the best World Cup ever. We legitimately would have the best World Cup ever.
We've
Um,
proven it. We've like
yeah.
with all of the events. We have F1 here. We've got Oz Open here. Why wouldn't we be able to have the world's biggest tournament? You know, Olympics
The,
too coming up in
the only thing that
2032.
stops us is politics.
Yeah,
But even then, it can't stop us forever. It will happen one day.
yeah. I'm manifesting it, and I think the Women's World Cup proved that we can really host good tournaments as well.
100%.
And I'm keen to like once the World Cup comes, obviously they're probably going to have to make a few more stadiums. It'd be awesome to see state of the art footballing stadiums as well. They're not needing to do too many, but maybe one or two random state of the art facility
Something.
stadiums would be pretty
Something.
cool.
Help us
Yeah,
out. Throw us a
yeah, for
bone.
sure. 100%. Let us take it and grab it. But yeah, one day. When do you think it would be likely if you were to predict which year the World Cup would be? Like, obviously, we're not going to have 2030 or 2034. Probably not 2038. But where are we aiming?
I actually think 2038 is a possibility because you look at it with the rotation policy, and I wrote about this like last year or whatever, so I might have the details wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only country that is eligible for 2038, or so one of the only confederations that should be open to bid for 2038 is Oceania. Now, clearly, Oceania can't do it themselves, and clearly, we're not in Oceania anymore. But if I'm FIFA and I'm looking at that, there's clearly an opportunity for an Asia Pacific World Cup where it could be Australia, New Zealand, probably Indonesia as well. Similar model to the World Cup next year, and I think that would be amazing. Like a a World Cup for this part of the world, which has never happened before. Um, if the rotation policy says it's Oceania's turn next, then we have to be involved. Well, FIFA has two choices. One is skip Oceania completely, which I don't think they could justify, or okay, it's Oceania's turn. We're going to have to bend the rules a little bit because the Confederation can't do it by themselves. So you open the door then for Australia, Indonesia, New Zealand, boom, and you got an amazing World Cup there with a lot of diversity too. You got the Kiwi side of things. Have a freaking, I don't know if you could build a stadium. I know there's a stadium there, but imagine like a 40,000 seater in Bali. Well, to be
Oh,
fair,
oh magic.
getting around Bali is not good. So maybe skip Bali, unless everyone's going to be taking Gojeks to the stadium.
Just
Um,
have like the screens on Finn's beach bar or something.
yeah, I
Yeah,
know. But I honestly don't think 2038 is out of the realms of possibility. And if not then soon after that. But 38, get around it.
it's good time. If we have a really successful Olympics, then why would they not think that we're able to host the world's like something on the world stage? Like it would
Totally.
make the most sense to have it 6 years after.
38, I'll be 48, still a little bit life left in me.
Yeah, it's got a bit of wheels to your 50. They hit the halfway point, and you've pretty much achieved everything in football by then, you'd say. And then the last thing you need is on the other side of 50, Australia winning a World Cup.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, no, it could potentially happen. But I guess other than football and the sport that we covered, Angeball, is there anything else you wanted to talk about in the realm of sports? As you know, we cover a lot of sports here on my podcast. So anything that excites you? Obviously, the finals. You end up watching the NBA finals
Nah,
before
man,
this.
I don't. I'm sorry, not cricket. Basketball. I actually played a lot of basketball at school. I was terrible, but I was a good enough 3-point shooter for like a 6-month period in year 12 to get into like our first five. Um, but I never got into watching basketball very much, or like I loved playing NBA Live on PlayStation when I was at uni all the time, but I just never made that leap into having a team or watching it and being invested. So no, I haven't been into the finals. Man, as much as I love sport, I'm not really that like I'll watch anything, but like in terms of things that actually interest me deeply, aside from the Holy Trinity that I mentioned earlier, it doesn't bother me too much. Like even the AFL at the moment, I'm happy to let slide just because Port Adelaide are useless. Like I don't know how we should have beaten the Swans the other day. It is what it is. And then yeah, what's the other one in the Holy Trinity? Cricket, man. Just
Well,
looking
we're about to
forward to
tour West Indies.
yeah. So my
We're about to go
colleague at the
there.
moment, Tom, is in the West Indies. What a gig that is to
Yeah, that'd be
follow the
unreal.
team around. So interesting sort of period ahead. Then we've got an Ashes to look forward to as well, which
Yeah.
will be. I'm hoping to sort of be involved in the coverage somewhere, probably like fourth or fifth string cricket writer for the Herald by then. But I don't care as long as I can get into a couple of grounds, I'll be happy. Run the
How do
live
you think?
blog if I need to.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think of we'll go up there in the West Indies? We haven't played in the Caribbean for over 10 years. It seems so. Be pretty
Yeah,
exciting. We
look,
haven't
I don't
toured there
know.
for a
We
long time.
we should probably be winning, right? This series, the West Indies
Yeah.
aren't what they used to be, but
No.
I just want to see a little bit more solidity in the batting lineup. I'd like to see Constas prove a few people wrong who already sort of like decided that he's an immature slog merchant. I'd just like to see him have a couple of good solid innings, a little bit of regeneration, not too much, a little bit is needed. Yeah, I just want to see some good confident cricket, some good batting, and some steps forward from him in particular.
For sure. And then the Ashes coming up. Super excited for that as well. Gonna always
Ah,
try get to a annual Boxing Day, but nothing beats a Ashes. The last time I went, saw Scott Boland get his four
oh,
wickets at the last session. Was one of the most unbelievable sessions as well. And he walked up right to our bay. I'm pretty sure there's a photo of me and my mates just in like cricket polo tops and the big Bunnings bucket hats, just applauding him after that session as well. And then he
that's
topped it
mad.
off the next day, and just we beat him in 3 days. I couldn't believe it. It was so good.
Yeah, I got to get to a Boxing Day test. That's on my bucket list. Never done it.
Like unbelievable. Like the atmosphere is incredible. And even last year when Sam Constance was opening the batting, that's where he's made his debut and was doing all those ram shots, hitting for six as well on Boomerang of
Yeah,
all people as well.
that
Just
was
crazy.
mental. That was
Yeah.
mental.
Yeah, I love cricket, man. Honestly, I could talk about it for a long time, especially when the summer ramps up. I feel like it gets a bad rap because it's perceived as boring, but I kind of love the art of Test cricket as well. I'm not really a big 2020 fan personally because of the fact
No,
that it's
me
a lot
either.
of slugging.
Me either. Can't get into it. Don't have a
Yeah,
big bash team. Not
me
interested.
either.
But I'll watch a test match anytime. Yeah. But I feel like footy and football. Both. Needless to say, ball sports, like team sports, like in terms of the balls in the field, perpetual motion and all that. You need, for me at least, in terms of the Holy Trinity, you need a different one to balance it
Yeah,
out. And like, you know, if we're Americans, baseball would take that position in our sort of cultural space. But like a good bat sport, man, is like it's great.
yeah, yeah. Can't be the good
Completely
bat sport.
different rhythms. One of the things I like about cricket is just like it's a team sport, but it's also individual based in terms of battles between individuals and just all the different sort of traditions and like the stats. You can go so deep with whatever, and there's so many different ways to tell stories because the format is so different versus football. Like, head to head, people talk about head to head battles in football in terms of like centre backs versus a striker or whatever. But how much does that actually happen on the field versus like everyone's going to be looking forward the next time that Australia plays India, Constas versus freaking Bumrah? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
crazy
that's a
good
head to head battle. It's almost like boxing within a team sport in terms of just like
for
the
sure.
the psychological. It's mad. I love cricket.
And the storylines, yeah, like
Yeah,
it's you love the drama as well, and especially like how like even our media and stuff like. wrongfully treat India at the times, or wrongly treat like the opposition teams, but it just creates that battle and that storyline that just propels like the rivalry, and also makes it like go to next level. Like I know when England's going to come here, there's going to be that hostility. They give us stuff about the sandpaper. It's just crazy. I love the like little dramas that come from it, because it's meant to be a gentleman's game, but there's so many intricacies involved that like I think people love to talk about in cricket, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll finish that off here. Vince, really appreciate you getting on the pod, talking all things Angeball, all things football, all things sports in general as well towards the end. But guys, if you are keen for reading Angeball, check it out on Amazon. I'm pretty sure it's on as well.
Amazon, wherever, to be honest. Wherever you can get your hands on it, do it. Not just for me. I appreciate people, supporting the book, but just like literally get to know this guy's journey a little bit more if you don't know it, because it's certainly not finished, that's for sure. There's more to come, but it's just such an amazing story, and I'm just the guy who told it on this occasion. But I just, anyone who likes to get behind Aussies in sport, it's not too late to clue up on the whole Ange Postecoglou journey before he turns up at another club and does the same magic again.
For sure. And look out for his stories on the Sydney Morning Herald. I heard you got a few coming up, you said on this episode. So personally, I'm excited to read those and kind of dive into those stories too. So yeah, thank you so much for getting onto the pod. And guys, I will leave it at that until next week. Cheers. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Huddle With Him podcast. I appreciate you for tuning in and being part of this community where we go beyond the game and into what really matters. If this episode resonated with you, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who sees sports just the way that we do. And hey, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on my social medias, which will be linked below. Send in your thoughts and even be part of a future episode. Until next time, keep that passion alive, stay in the huddle, and remember, it's always deeper than the game. Cheers.